David, you have some experience in other parts of the world. Might you weigh in on this?
Yeah, we have the pleasure of working with Ashoka picks and supports the best social entrepreneurs in the world. So we have 3,000 Ashoka fellows around the world doing really exciting stuff in this field. And actually, just before we start, I want to pay tribute to some, we all stand on shoulders of people before us. And the last time I was in this room was 9 years ago when we were having a tribute to George McGovern on his 85th birthday. If there's anybody who kind of saw food and nutrition as an issue in the 1950s, for God's sake, and lived it his whole life, it was that man, and he was a great mentor of mine. And plus my grandfather was a dairy farmer. So, but in trying to create demand, intelligent demand, there are a lot of you who are focused on the supply side of this. God bless you, you should be. But unless we get consumers saying no, yeah, it's cheap, but there are a lot of things that are cheap that I don't buy. I don't buy the cheapest beer. I don't buy the cheapest food. I don't buy the cheapest clothes because they don't last long. So I think what's starting to happen is we're starting to see social entrepreneurs and others start succeeding by getting people to understand the cost to themselves and the benefits to themselves. This business of externalizing costs onto the society is an old one. We've been down this road many times, whether it was the chemical industry, cheap energy, remember, it's called coal. Unless you start, if you live in Beijing, you see immediately what's going on with the externalization of costs. So we're focused on doing demand. The problem with demand is if you want to buy nourishing food, and by the way, I love organic, but organic does not necessarily mean nourishing. So if I want, it means I don't have the bad things on it that you're talking about. If I go into my store, which I do once a week, it's really hard to know what to buy. So that stuff on the box, with all due respect to the stuff on the box, doesn't tell me that that food is bioavailable. It doesn't tell me that the vitamins and minerals are bioavailable to me. It doesn't tell me the outcomes. It doesn't tell me whether, I don't know whether the tomatoes here were picked red or green. And so giving consumers the tools to know what is nourishing and how they're doing on outcomes, so we get away from the tyranny of the scales. BMI is not a measurement of nourishment. It tells me whether I'm fat or not. I already know that. I don't need to do the calculation. So I know, all right, but it's the good beer. So, so empowering people with tools to measure nourishment and showing them what happens when it does. Because the costs individually, it's not just illness. Illness is bad, and whether it's mental illness, physical illness, there's a whole, we can talk for a long time, and I'm happy to, that's what I do for a living, about the costs of people who are not nourished properly. But look at it positively. If our goal is vitality, energy, enjoy life, do the best you can, have a 4-year-old really able to learn, it's not a question of whether they're sick, it's a question of whether they've been given the right fuel. And that's an individual thing. So I think there are opportunities here. We're having a conversation today we were not having 5 years ago. So I'm actually very optimistic that we can turn this around, particularly from the demand side. On the supply side, it's going to be a bitch because those people are making lots of money, they're well armed, and they have high castle walls and hot oil. But on the demand side, I think the serfs may be able to win.